Look, this is definitely one of the smallest 0.95 lenses I've tested so far. And this is TTArtisan's 50mm f0.95 for Micro Four Third. Let's go! Welcome back, this is Cheng from RED35. I have something cool to show you, and this is the smallest 50mm f0.95 lens I have ever tested. And you will know, if you have been with me long enough in this channel, you may have seen many ultra-fast prime lenses I have reviewed since the beginning of this channel. That includes some of the recent masters that I've totally enjoyed and recommended, such as Laowa's 25mm Argus 0.95, and TTArtisan's 50mm f0.95. Just gorgeous, this thing. So when it's come to sub f1 aperture lenses, the new TTArtisan's 50mm f0.95 definitely has its hands full. A disclaimer that TTArtisan sent this lens to me with a Micro Four Third mount, so I can fully utilize it with my OM1's new BSI sensor, and just to see if I can get the most out of it. But this is a non-biased review, so I hope to give you all the necessary information and sample images so you can make up your mind to see whether this lens is worthwhile in your camera bag. Ever since I reviewed TTArtisan's brilliant 23mm 1.4 and the 28mm 5.6mm, and recommended both for their bang-for-buck values and performance, together with their old-school vintage design, I was expecting no less on their new lens. And this new 50mm f0.95 is no exception, full metal and glass construction. But instead of using the more traditional rib design on either focus and aperture rings, TTArtisan has opted for a rather unique carved-out look that exposed the bare aluminium on both rings. And it certainly looks interesting and different. But while it's functional by means of increasing the friction for better grip, it may feel a little alien each time you turn the ring to adjust either aperture or focus. Both rings are really smooth, with enough resistance to avoid accidental turns. An aperture is click-stop, but it does employ a rather interesting steps. Between 0.95 and f4, there is a half a stop click. And between f4 and f16, you have a full click at each stop. Since last year, TTArtisan has upped their game in terms of build and presentation. All the text are now engraved onto the lens barrel instead of printed. And what I can say is that the build is premium and definitely exceeds my expectation on a lens that sells for less than $230. At 411 gram, TTArtisan's new 50mm f0.95 is not a lens for you if you want the lightest setup for your photography. But at the same time, you will not find any 0.95 lens that is light anyway, because of the required design to suck as much light as possible to the sensor. Comparatively, it is similar weight to TTArtisan's 50mm f0.95, but with a diameter of 64mm and 63mm in length, it is a fraction smaller in volume than its rivals' offering. So all in all, TTArtisan is the smallest and lightest 50mm f0.95 lens on the market right now. Even so, due to its size and weight, it is a better fit to use this lens on a larger camera body such as OM System's OM1 or Panasonic's GX series, even though it looks super sexy on my EM5. Since I received this lens, I have shot a fair amount of photos using my OM1, and what I'm about to say can be quite subjective, depends on how much you value the character of a lens. And having said that, I've done a brick wall test so you can judge how well this lens performs on a controlled environment. As you can see, the central sharpness is decent at 0.95. Okay, I'm not going to say it's award-winning, but seriously, I haven't seen a solid 0.95 lens that can perform well at this extreme aperture setting apart from Leica's ultra-expensive Noctilux. And having said that, 0.95 is usable, but you do get a bit of halo when you're shooting with reflective objects. And stopping down does improve things dramatically. And by f2, it's already pretty clinical and looks like any modern lenses, with eye-shattering sharpness achieved at 5.6 before diffraction ruins your day at f11. Edge is more or less the same business, and aligned with similar class of lenses on the market right now. Soft with chroma, smearing the details at 0.95. Stopping down to 2.8 will give you much better results, but you won't get a decent edge-to-edge sharpness until f8. And again, diffraction kicks in at f11. First, any 0.95 lenses will give you bokeh, that unlike anything else you've experienced with 1.4 or slower lenses. 0.95 is just darn crazy when it comes to bokeh dreaminess. But each lens has different optical design, and what bokeh makes you tinkle is, well, only you know. But for the purpose of this review, I will say that the bokeh from TTArtisan 50mm f0.95 is very dreamy. Soft, that reminds you a bit of a feather bokeh from Olympus Pro lenses, just a bit more leaning over the older Outtro film lenses. So that may appeal to some, and I personally like it. Specular highlight doesn't handle so well, with some fringing showing, but overall I do like the rendering of this lens. Vignette is present, and again, similar to any 0.95 lenses I've tested so far, and you do lose about a stop and a half of light at the corners, but the lens corrects itself when you stop down to 2.8. Lateral chromatic aberration is present, but generally and surprisingly well handled for an ultra-fast lens. I would even say it's better than TTArtisan 50mm f0.95. But even if you do encounter CA, it is very easy to correct in post, as it's not severe or destructive. Flare, however, is perhaps my biggest gripe for the review. It is pretty bad, especially when shooting wide open at 0.95. You can get a bonfire picture if you're not careful. However, remember that I actually love flare in my photography because it gives me layer, texture, and character. So this may be negative for some, but to photographers like me, it's actually pretty cool. Just be careful of your framing and you'll be fine. There is a hint of focus breathing if you're shooting directly to something from 2 meters away. It is not heavy, but worth noting. However, if you're shooting at an angle or utilizing its shallow depth of field for subject separation at close distances, any focus breathing is masked by the creamy bokeh. And for that, I think it is a very usable video lens, and just be mindful of the click-stop aperture. If you are as enthusiastic on menu lenses as I am, you will appreciate what TTArtisan and other Chinese lens manufacturers have done over the past decade. While we can get cheap vintage lenses on the used market, we now have more choices, and often better optical performing lenses, at similar or lower cost to the granddad lens you get from EvilBay. TTArtisan 50mm f0.95 is another good example on how much of a character lens can be had these days. For just over $200, you are getting a lot of lens. Okay, it's fair to say that you can only use 0.95 for a very specific purpose, and just like many other similar lenses, including Voigtlander, which costs a few times more. But stopping down will give you a very modern look that compares well with native lenses from big name players too. It's not for everyone, of course, But for those who love dreamy look with great marshmallow looking bokeh and very filmic cinematic in both stills and videos, this TTArtisan 50mm f0.95 is a great option. So what would be my recommendation based on what I just said? Should you avoid it, consider it, shortlist it, or just go ahead and buy it? Well, I think you should definitely shortlist it. There are only a handful of 50mm f0.95 lenses on the market, and prices do vary depends on mount, brands, and performance. But there are even fewer options at this price range. So if you like what you see in this video, you may want to have a harder look at TTArtisan's offering. And this brings to the end of this video, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts on this cool looking 50mm lens, and do you have another option that you may want me to check out? Let's have a chat in the comment section below. You know what to do now. Sub if you like this video, and sub if you want to stay in touch with all things photography and filmmaking, and of course, Michael 4 First. Peace.